I bought my first rental property when I was 22 years old. Today I'm going to show you exactly how I found it, funded it, and how much money it makes me. I'm 24 years old now, and since my first rental property, my teammate from college and I have owned at our peak over 74 units, wholesaled over 250 houses, and started a title company. But today I'm going to focus on deal one, the most important deal you will ever do and the hardest one to get into. So I will show you how I found it at a discounted price, and then how I funded it, and then what kind of return it was making me. So let's get into it. Here it is. This is our first deal. We bought it for $31,000. This Google Street View photo actually captured my partner getting out of his truck. As you can see here, we were doing lawn care ourselves. This deal, we went into it thinking we're gonna do everything ourselves, and that's what we did. So here it is. This is what it looked like when we bought it. Honestly, it looks just about the same now. So let me show you the HUD. This is the purchase HUD with my name on it. I'll block this out. So first, I'm gonna break down this HUD, which is what you will get at the closing table when you go to buy your first rental property, which basically breaks down all the costs and fees that are being paid for by you, the realtor, the seller, and it just breaks down line by line what exactly you're paying for outside of the purchase price. You'll see things like prorated taxes, insurance, prorated rent, and you can see on the seller side, the mortgage payoff. You can see the cost of your title insurance, which is basically ensuring that if someone came out of the woodworks and said that they owned the property you just bought, you're protected. So you'll see that on this HUD, and also show you the title company's fees. Ripping through here, contract sales price, $29,500. I will show you how we found this deal at such a good price next, but first let's go through the HUD. Settlement charges to the borrower, in summary, are just all the title company's fees to cover title insurance, processing, abstracting, etc. So $2,000, a little high for a purchase price of $30,000, but doesn't break the deal. So that gave us our gross amount due, $31,500. We put down a EMD when we got the property under contract of $500. Your EMD is basically what you put down to show that you're serious. For a deal like this, $500 is enough. More expensive, more premium, will have bigger EMDs, like 1 to 3% of the purchase price. This one, $500. We put it down the day we got it under contract with the title company, and this showed the seller, hey, this buyer's legit. He's putting down money. Okay, we can roll. At close, obviously, that is subtracted out of the amount we need to bring to the closing table. So that's what this is. It's taking it out of there. So then total amount was $31,500. That includes the title company's processing fees, etc., and title insurance. Subtract out our EMD of $500, and that left us with $31,000 we have to bring to the closing table. And then over here is the seller breakdown. For you as a buyer, you need to just look at prorated taxes, insurance, rent, anything that would affect money you have to pay out or money you're owed by owning the property if you had a tenant. This property is vacant, so there is no prorated rent. Prorated rent is basically, say you bought the house on the 15th and the tenant paid rent on the 1st. You are owed half of the monthly rent because for the first half of the month, the seller owned it. For the second half of the month, you owned it. So therefore, you are entitled to half their rent. Same thing with taxes and insurance. If it's middle of the year, the seller has already paid taxes, the rest of the year's taxes is your responsibility, so the seller needs to get back the second half of the yearly taxes. If you don't understand this stuff, when you go to the closing table, ask your closer to break it down for you. It's really not too confusing, and it's not going to make that big of a difference. But as you start to buy a lot of properties, do a lot of closings, things like prorated rent, taxes, and insurance becomes a real number. So just always check that on the HUD, make sure it's being done correctly. Not all title companies are going to be great about it. But actually, shout out our title company. My partner and I founded a title company. If you are in Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, you can use ours, Red River Title Company. DM me on Instagram. So that's our purchase HUD. It'll show you more line items. What I recommend is just any line item when you're at the closing table you don't understand, ask your closer to explain it to you. That's the best way to get educated on a HUD. Every state, it's going to look different. Every title company is going to look a little different, but generally this is what it's going to look like. There's my signature, Roger Vislowski. Roger's my first name, Roger Alexander Vislowski. Every city, town, state is going to have different affidavits you have to sign. Again, if you don't understand it, just ask them about it. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this for ours because your market, your situation, your property, your county is going to look different. But for every affidavit they ask you to sign, have them talk to you about what you're signing. But affidavits, you're always going to sign a few affidavits, notary forms, etc., seller acknowledgement. Depending on the state, county, city, whatever, there's going to be different acknowledgments you have to sign. Your settlement statement, you will want to look at what your title insurance is protecting you. So that's what this is. This is breaking down what we're covered for if someone came out and said, hey, I own this property. Basically, your purchase price. So that's what this is. Always look at the title commitment, read through it, make sure you are getting the coverage you need. That's why we don't do quick claim deeds like ever, unless it's for, under $5,000. A quick claim deed is just whoever you're dealing the transaction with saying, I don't own this property. That's it. That's all they're saying. You don't have any type of insurance or protection. So quick claim deeds, we don't like them. And even if the seller says, oh no, trust me, the title's clean. I think it's been nine out of 10 closings, title finds stuff that needs to get cleaned up. At least in our experience, especially if you're dealing with off-market discounted properties, title is going to be messy. So always get a warranty deed, title insurance. Don't do quick claim deeds unless it's pennies. Not worth the risk. We actually, the first deal we tried to buy, thank the Lord we got title insurance because we bought it from someone who actually didn't own it. They just had the same name, literally same within a few days birth date. And it turns out they didn't have the right to sell it, but luckily we had title insurance and we got reimbursed for our purchase price of the property. Literally our first deal we tried to buy. So if you don't think you need title insurance, trust me, you do. It is not worth the risk and it's not that expensive. You pay it one time at closing. So that's the rest of this. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Have your title company break it down, know what you're paying for, know what you're signing, and making sure you're insured. So $30,000 purchase price for this house. Now, this isn't even in that bad of an area. Right behind it, we got a military base. This area is actually pretty decent. So surprisingly, a lot of these houses Airbnb well, but how did we get this house for $30,000? This house market value is over 120, fixed up, nice, looking good. So we got it for a steal. Cold calling, that's it. Cold calling tired landlords. So let me show you roughly the numbers it took for us to get this deal. This deal was a 3-bed, 1-bath, roughly 900 square foot single family house. Market value, $120,000. Purchase price, $30,000. And the crazy part is it wasn't even in that bad of shape. This is what it looked like when we bought it. Nothing crazy, just pretty nasty. Most of all, just a nasty looking house, just bad tenants. They had animals in here and they're just abusing the place. These were the tenants, not the owner. That ties into how we got such a good deal. There's Antonio, and this is our now property manager, Madison. Basically, the landlord got tired of dealing with these tenants. These tenants weren't paying rent. They were abusing the place. This guy, he'd owned rentals for 20 plus years, and he was just tired of owning it. They were actively living in there when we bought it. So we actually closed on it, didn't see it for 30 days because they had to go through the eviction process. They had to leave their belongings in place. And then when they moved out, we finally got to see it. The landlord was so exhausted dealing with these people and didn't want to have to fight them in an eviction that they sold it to us at a discount. It seems like robbery, but after owning the number of units we've owned, we've been in the position where we'd be willing to sell a property for an extreme discount because we just don't want to deal with the headaches. And that was exactly the situation with this landlord. When we're talking about wholesaling or getting discounted off-market deals, the common denominator is always the why behind why they want to sell, the why behind their motivation. The more severe the pain and frustration, the more likely they are to take a low offer in order to get it off their hands. They're sacrificing getting full market value in exchange for convenience. So at the time, we were just doing cold calling. We had an auto dialer, batch dialer is the one we use, 4 lines at a time. And myself or Antonio would just rip through it. This deal, Antonio got it. And here are the numbers that it took to get this deal at literally less than 30% market value. We were cold calling, auto dialer, batch dialer, shout out. The list was tired landlords. We went to PropStream, pulled the tired landlords. They owned it at least for 15 years, owned at least 2 properties. Individual name, not a corporation. And they had at least 40% equity. This one, he owned it outright in cash. It took 37,000 plus cold calls in order to get this deal. Roughly every 300 to 400 calls, we would get someone on the phone that was willing to take an offer. So it took over 3,000 calls to be able to make 12 offers. Of those 12 offers, 7 of them resulted in an appointment. By appointment, I mean us actually going out to the property, looking at it, talking to the seller. From there, our offer got narrowed down to more so what it needs to be. Of those 7 appointments, led to getting 4 deals under contract. Why did we get these under contract and why did it only result in 1 actual deal? Well, for us, after we get a deal under contract, if we're not buying it, we'll try to wholesale it. So of those 4, 3 of them we could not wholesale. And then the last one we were left with was this deal we bought. We got a lot of fantastic offers on it to wholesale it. We could have made over $20,000 on a wholesale fee. However, we wanted to buy our first deal. So that's why we ended up buying it. But for us now, if we get 5 houses under contract, 4 of them are being wholesaled or bought by us. But at the time, we did not have as many buyers and we did not have the ability to close on as many deals. Therefore, we'd get a lot of houses under contract and a lot of them would not move. Not moving as in we wouldn't be able to wholesale it and we wouldn't be able to buy it. Now that we have much better dispo, thanks to our school community and connecting with more realtors, investors, etc., plus our ability to actually buy deals. If the house is going under contract, we're going to move it one way or the other. At the time, we were still fresh and 4 houses under contract, 1 deal. So that's the marketing it took for us to get this deal. Now let me show you how we funded this deal. These are all checks we made wholesaling real estate. So for our first year roughly in real estate, we just were wholesaling houses. We did well over 60 wholesale deals. These wholesale checks are how we bought our first rental. Now, our wholesale operations, we had started increasing marketing, so we had a lot of overhead. So this deal, we actually did not buy 100% with our own wholesale money. We put up 50% of the purchase price, so 15 grand, split between me and my teammate from college. The other half we took hard money at 12% interest. We were okay with paying that interest because the plan with this property was to clean it up, fix it up, and refinance it. I'll get to why that didn't work out for us here in a sec. But first, I wanted to point out that real estate investing requires money. It sounds really obvious, but it's become less common sense with the rise of 0% down real estate strategies, creative financing. Yes, there are subject to deals where you can assume someone's mortgage without putting any money down. However, to find those deals, you got to spend money on marketing. Okay, so then your next thing is just buying cheap deals. Regardless if you borrow hard money to cover your purchase price and renovation, there's going to be a high interest rate and fees on that hard money. Cost you money. My point with all this is that if you're looking to get into real estate and you're thinking, hey, how can I get into real estate with no money? Or hey, how can I get into real estate with less than 5 grand? You should not be thinking about how should I get in real estate. You should be thinking about how can I increase my base income first. Now, if you don't want to do that, then you need to find someone with the money to fund the real estate that you're investing in, and you need to get really skilled and equipped at identifying deals, finding deals, and executing on deals. So if you're not wanting to go out and increase your base pay through side hustles like wholesaling, your W-2 job, starting a business, etc., then you need to invest a lot of time in finding a partner to fund the real estate investment while you get really skilled at investing in real estate. This structure, I've even seen it like in the case of like a married couple. One person's working the W-2, the other's investing their real estate. One of the biggest investors we work with in our market, that's their structure. Husband works all day, wife invests in real estate. But anyways, this is how we funded our first deal. Wholesale, side hustle income. After a year of saving and getting a skill set that we can make money out of, and then mixing in hard money, only half of the purchase price. We did the renovations ourselves. Renovations was just painting, cleaning, stuff like that. And we weren't over leveraged. So if you're watching this, you want to know how can I get in my first real estate deal? I highly recommend saving up at least $40,000 so you can purchase a rough property in a mid-sized market. And then the actual repairs and renovation, either juice a credit card, borrow hard money, or get a partner involved. And then for what I teach is using a DSCR lender to refinance to get your cash out. All right, so after we purchased this deal, my partner and I literally drove out there on a Tuesday morning with my Expedition at the time, his pickup truck, and trashed it out ourselves. We literally cleaned it up ourselves, bags and bags of trash, just absolutely nasty. There were roaches, bugs, all kinds of stuff. But we did all of this ourselves because we wanted to save money. But in reality, we should have just paid someone a few $1,000s to do it because it was gross. Took us multiple days, and we still had to we had to fill our own vehicles with junk and drive it to the dump. Like, look at this. Like, we had to do all this ourselves. It was nasty. It took away from us being able to focus on increasing our income through wholesaling. And just, look, we were just so excited to have our own deal that it was fine with us. But after we trashed it out, all we did was a little bit of touch-up paint on the outside, cleaning it, and then really good clean on the inside. And that was it. All we did once we got a tenant on a lease, we did some touch-up paint here and there, but we literally just cleaned this place really well and gave someone a move-in special, as in they just didn't have to pay a full deposit because it was a little, it wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. And we got a tenant in there for $850 a month. So after we cleaned it up, we got a tenant in there at $850 per month. And this is how this property did the first year we owned it. Purchase price, $31,500, did a $1,000 renovation, all in $32,500. That first year we owned it, $850 a month in rent. Management, I was the property manager, so no management fee. Normally I'd put in 8 to 10% for your property manager's fee. Depending on your market, I'd expect 6 to 10% is about what you'll be paying a property manager in order to manage your rentals. Vacancy for this year was 8.33, or roughly 1 month. This place was vacant for 1 month. This tenant actually, she was a traveling nurse, and when she moved out, she left it in great shape. So we were able to throw a tenant right back in there in about a month. So there was 1 month out of the year we were not collecting rent. So that's why I put vacancy rate at 8.33. Safe estimate, put vacancy rate anywhere between 5 to 10%. If it's lower income housing, I'd lean towards 10 to 15%. This house, we got pretty lucky with 8.3, or 1 month of vacancy. Work orders were $250. One time we had to send someone out to get up on the roof and snake the sewer line, and it was after hours, so he charged us $250. We were super lucky in that we had very little work orders the first year of owning this place. Now we're in year 3 of owning this place, and we expect probably replacing the roof. However, we're going to try to have it be done by insurance because there's a lot of rough weather where we're at. So first year, fantastic on the work orders. Total rent collected, $9,350. Taxes on the year, $657. We're in Oklahoma, so taxes are really cheap. Insurance, it was roughly $45 a month. We have a fantastic insurance broker, $540 on the year, leaving us with our profit on the year, $8,153, which puts this property at a 25 cap. That's unbelievable in real estate, earning 25% on your investment. Now, our market is a cash flow market, so we don't really bank on appreciation. And we trade appreciation for cash flow. So the reason we like these deals more than deals in markets where you get strong appreciation is that cash flow is actualized instantly. It's not something that you're waiting to capitalize on when you sell the property or when you refinance and pull out some equity. Every month we're getting cash flow, whereas appreciation, it's not guaranteed. For us, and using the BRRRR model, buy, remodel, rent, refinance, repeat, properties with strong cash flow work so much better for us. So this deal, unbelievable, 25% return. But one thing you got to factor in, this purchase price, $32,500. For this cold calling, the number of hours put in, the time, the money spent on the data to call, the price we paid for the dialer, that you can't see it, but it's what makes up a wholesaler's assignment fee. Their time and investment in marketing is what you're paying for when you get a deal from a wholesaler, but it's not reflected here because it was our own deal we found. Now, if we bought this from a wholesaler, I would expect us paying, we'd probably been all in 42 or 45,000, honestly. We'd probably be all in 45,000, still an 18 cap, fantastic. Honestly, knowing our buyers in this area now, if we were to wholesale deal like this, a place like this would go for 50,000 at least to our buyers, and they're happy because they get a 16 cap. So 3 months after we got this place occupied, we wanted to refinance and get our cash out like everyone says to do when you're doing BRRRR real estate investing. So what did we do? We went to a local bank and we got turned away. We went to Bank First, Bank of Oklahoma, and a few at Bank of America and Arvest, a few other banks, and this is what they told us. They said, first of all, we have a seasoning period. You have to own it for at least a year. Crap, we just bought it. Second of all, they didn't care about the property's rental income. They cared that us, me and my teammate from college, had no W-2 and no tax returns. Bang, we're done. Lastly, they had a bias towards A, B, C, or D class housing. This house was more C to B type housing, and most of the community banks don't like those assets. So they didn't want to lend on it. They didn't care how good the cash flow was or how cheap we bought it. They didn't want to touch it. And on the how cheap we bought it, some of the banks saw how discounted we bought it and actually harmed us in our ability to refinance it at market value. So the best we were able to get from community banks was, hey, own it for, we can give you 50% of your purchase price back, and then after a year, we'll give you 70% of the market value. That sucked. We thought we were just going to be able to buy it, go to a bank, hey, look how good it's doing, refinance, pull our cash out. So what we ended up doing was calling up an investor who was buying majority of our wholesale deals and told him, hey, we bought this house, the numbers are great, but we can't get any banks to give us our money out of it. What do we do? He's like, don't worry, what you need is a DSCR lender. So he gave us his DSCR lender's number. Her name was Trishelle. If you want to access her, shoot me a DM on Instagram. And what DSCR stands for, debt service coverage ratio. That is how they qualify the loan. The property qualifies for the loan, not you. All they care about is that the rental income covers the monthly debt. So debt service coverage ratio. They care that the ratio is at least for our lender, 1, meaning rent must at least equal monthly debt. Most DSCR lenders, it's like 1.2, so your monthly rent needs to be at least 1.2 times the monthly debt. Outside of the debt service coverage ratio, a lot of them have loan minimums, so the property has to be at least worth $75,000. For our DSCR lender, her minimum loan amount is $50,000. There are some lenders that will do lower and smaller loans. However, they're going to be more expensive to use with their cost and fees. But with our lender, her minimum loan amount, $50,000. So here were the requirements on the loan we got with her. The property would have to at least appraise for $75,000. We knew this place at the minimum would appraise for $90,000. And rental income has to at least coverage debt. Outside of that, our credit score had to at least be 620 and above. And she even had some products that could work with a lower credit score, but you get worse terms. For us, it was no problem. We each had over a 700 credit score. So, all right. So after we knew we met the preliminary conditions for our getting approved for this loan. The process took about 30 days. They send out an appraiser. Underwriting will have certain conditions. They'll ask for like proof of insurance, operating agreement for the business you bought it in, EIN letter for the IRS. Sometimes they might ask for some bank statements, but that's not what's going to qualify for the loan. They won't ask for proof of income. And they'll need to know the bank account that the payments are going to come out of. And then of course the bank account you want the refi to hit. So for this deal, it ended up appraising only about like $92,000. We got to take out a loan for 75% of $92,000, which was $69,000. Title and the lender's fees came out to be roughly $4,500. So cash out of this deal, $64,000 and some change, which we were all in $31,000. So it was an amazing deal. We got out double what we put in, and we still own the property, and it's still cash flowing. So our first deal was fantastic. And the reason we were able to have such a good first deal was because we invested so much in learning how to market and find our own discounted off-market deals. And we got to say no to so many more deals. The reason that our first deal was so great was because we were able to say no to so many bad deals, and we were able to just wholesale so many deals to investors and get a really strong feel of what makes a grand slam deal, what makes a single, what kills a deal. And so by the time we were ready to buy, we cherry picked the very best one. So our first deal was fantastic because now we're playing with $64,000 to buy our next deal. We can either do a much nicer house or just do two of around the same quality and double our cash we have to put in the next deal again. Deals like these sound unreasonable. Like, hey, like the Burr model, if you read David Green's book, it's a great deal, even if you can pull out 90% of your cash from the deal. But for how much time and money we spend on marketing, it'd be unreasonable to not always be getting into really great deals. So to summarize our first deal and why it worked out was we mastered our deal flow, we had strong enough income to mostly finance it ourselves, and we went to a DSCR lender instead of a bank. When you buy a property at the right price and at a deep enough discount, the rest you have so much more room for error. You don't have to get the perfect remodel price. You don't have to use the perfect lender. You don't have to get the perfect appraisal. If you buy at the right price, everything else, there's room for mistakes. Now, obviously you want to optimize to reduce mistakes, but if you're buying at such a discount, you're at a lower risk of over leveraging yourself, being all in too much from a bad contractor or remodel, numbers not working because of vacancy, and the list goes on of all the things that don't sting as much as long as you bought it at the right price. Because if you buy it at a discount, you get instant equity. And a lot of people, they'll say they're getting instant equity because they're like, well, look at what Zillow says it's worth and look at what I bought it for. That's like, when we're talking a few thousand to $10,000, $20,000 of a difference, I don't consider that instant equity. I'm talking major discounts and gaps. I'm talking sub 50% ARV. That is instant equity because that's such a steep, the delta is so big that it's almost irrefutable that, hey, yeah, if you went and sold this place tomorrow, you'd be making a fat profit. That's what protects you when you're getting into real estate. So my advice, if you are getting into real estate now, if there's one area you should spend the most time, it's your deal pipeline. Because if you have a strong deal pipeline and get nothing but the best deals, you don't have to be an expert at construction. You don't have to have the perfect financing structure. It just needs to be passable. So I would say invest most of your time in getting a strong deal pipeline of discounted deals, getting a strong base income W-2, and as long as you always buy at the right price and you finance it mostly with your own cash or a partner or minimal hard money, everything else, you can handle a lot more mistakes. And for us, that's literally what it was. Our first few deals, we were kind of stupid when it came to remodels and property management and so on, but so many of our mistakes didn't hurt us like most investors because we bought it at such a good price. If you're wanting to get into real estate investing, you don't know where to start with connecting with wholesalers, learning your own marketing, and getting a predictable pipeline of deals sent your way you can make offers on, you can underwrite, and you can say no to. Second thing would be your active income, your W-2, your business, side hustle. Have the ability to at least put in 30 to 50% of your own cash when you're buying your first deal, and then start a relationship with a DSCR lender now so you can know what kind of loan products they have. So then that covers your finding and funding of your deals. Anyways, that was our first real estate deal. I will be breaking down every deal we've ever done. I'll be going into detail about our portfolio, our wholesaling, and a little bit about title. So if you want to learn more about this stuff, please like and subscribe. That's all I got. And thank you for watching.